Light Tetra Dualies versus Dark Tetra Dualies. Now that we finally have both kits, we can answer the question, which kit is the best in Splatoon 3? I'll tell you, this has got to be one of the most frequently asked questions that I've ever gotten in the entirety of my content creation career. Ever since the Sizzle season dropped a little over a week ago, I've been getting people asking me constantly whether or not I think Light Tetras are better or worse than the Dark Tetras. So that's why I'm making this video. Let's answer the question once and for all. Before we get into the specifics, I just want to make one thing clear. At the time of recording this video, it's a little hard for me to give you a 100% set in stone, concrete answer. I mean, we've barely had this weapon for over a week. The new meta is still developing. What I and other players think right now could very well change within the next month. We don't know yet. So all I'm saying is, take this video with a grain of salt. Just so you can all get some extra opinions, I decided to ask some of the top Tetra players in the West on whether or not they think Light Tetra Dualies are better than Darks. And some of their answers might surprise you. Stay tuned until the end of the video to see what they all had to say. Okay, now let's get into it. At first glance, the answer here seems pretty obvious. Light Tetra Dualies have Zipcaster, which is arguably one of the best specials the weapon could have. It has a ton of synergy, allowing you to get behind enemies quickly and distract them, opening things up for the rest of your teammates. Compared to the Dark Tetra's Reef Slider, which is often considered to just be a suicide button at high level play. Reef Slider does also have good synergy with the main weapon on paper, but the special is just so weak that it kinda just ends up not mattering. So the Light Tetras must be better then, right? It actually has a good, synergetic special. So why wouldn't it be? Well, let's talk about the other half of the kits, the sub-weapons. The Dark Tetra Dualies have Auto Bomb, which isn't great, but it's certainly not bad either. I'd personally say that Auto Bomb is around a mid-tier sub-weapon, but it is a bomb, so it's always going to be useful in that regard. Plus, the tracking benefits that Auto Bomb provides can actually be pretty useful for Tetras. Not to mention, Auto Bomb is a relatively cheap sub-weapon, only using 55% of your ink tank. But now, let's take a look at the Light Tetra Dualies sub-weapon, which is Sprinkler. Yeah, this one's pretty bad. It was bad in Splatoon 2, and it's not really any different here. I will say though that Sprinkler does make a bit more sense for the Splatoon 3 kit, since you can't use your sub-weapon in Zipcaster anyways. So you can just look at Sprinkler as a tool that helps you charge Zipcaster faster. And for that, it does serve its purpose quite well. But you know what else helps you charge your special faster? Fizzy Bomb? Or Suction Bomb? Okay, I'm getting off topic here. So Sprinkler helps you charge Zipcaster faster. Cool. But what else can it do? Well, if you've watched some of my recent videos, I have mentioned and demonstrated that Sprinkler can be used aggressively, as both a shield and a distraction. I plan to make a video soon going more in depth on all of Sprinkler's uses in the near future, but all I'll say now is that Sprinkler can be useful offensively if you're creative enough. But does that make it good? No. Auto Bomb is for sure the better sub-weapon here, especially on something like Tetra. So let's recap. Dark Tetras have a decent sub-weapon and an awful special. Light Tetras have an awful sub-weapon, but an amazing special. So the question is, do the positives of Zipcaster outweigh the negatives of the Sprinkler? Personally, yeah, I think it does. In my opinion, I do in fact think that Light Tetra Dualies are better than Dark Tetra Dualies. Sure, Sprinkler is trash, but Zipcaster is just so good with the main weapon that it's kinda fine. Yes, Auto Bomb is the better of the two sub-weapons, but Reef Slider is just so bad right now that the Auto Bomb doesn't really save it. However, with all that being said, I'm not saying that Dark Tetras are completely useless right now. I think that there are a few map mode combos that they still might be worth running over the lights. For example, I think certain Splat Zones maps, such as Flounder Heights and Wahoo World, are actually pretty good for Reef Slider, since popping it directly over the zone can be a free neutralization or zone cap. I could also still see uses for Reef Slider on Clam Blitz, since you can do some pretty cheesy things with power clam jumps. If you're someone who likes to coordinate power clam jumps with your team, Dark Tetras may still be worth running for you on that mode. In the grand scheme of things though, I do think Light Tetras are overall better than Dark Tetras right now. Again, that could potentially change in the future though. Maybe Reef Slider will get some big buffs making it more viable. Or maybe Zipcaster will get nerfed for some completely random, unjustified reason like Ultra Stamp did. But as of now, this is how I feel on the topic, so I hope that answers all of your guys' questions. As I said in the beginning of the video, I thought it would be a good idea to ask some other Tetra players who are way better at the game than I am, what their opinion is on this topic. I asked 3 of the best Tetra Dualie players in the West what their thoughts were, and I found their answers very surprising, as they all differed from one another. Baha, who's a member of the team called Breakpoint, says that he doesn't think one kit is necessarily better than the other. Both have situational uses. He makes a good point by saying that Zipcaster is pretty bad on certain maps, such as Humpback Pump Track, so you might as well use Dark Tetras there. Interestingly, he also says he thinks Light Tetras are pretty much always better on splat zones, which kind of contradicts the point that I made about Reef Slider having some situational uses on certain zones maps. I was curious about this, so I asked for further clarification, and he said he thinks that zipping to stall fights has more value than using Reef Slider to paint zone and most likely dying, which is a very reasonable point. Next, I asked Isabel, who's a member of the team called Zero Deaths. She says that right now, she actually might prefer using Dark Tetras since the bomb is extremely helpful. She also makes the comparison that Dark Tetras are more for slaying, while Light Tetras are more for distracting, sort of like an ink brush. Lastly, I asked Orion, who's a member of the team called Graveyard Shift. His opinion was probably the most similar to mine, as he also says that Dark Tetras are probably only useful on certain zones maps like Umami and Flounder, as well as on certain Clan Blitz maps depending on your comp. So now that you've heard all of our opinions, I'll leave it up to you. Which do you think is better, Light Tetras or Dark Tetras? And why do you feel the way that you do? Let me know all your thoughts down below, because I really want to hear what you all have to say. That's going to be it for me, guys. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.